I'm not letting a time ever happen where I don't have Hamza or Islam Makhachev with a fight. So as soon as this fight's over, you have both of them with no scheduled fight next. I'm not letting it happen. Like, I'm scheduling Hamza's fight this week. So as soon as Makhachev is over, it transitions to Hamza Chimaev, because those are the two biggest trending fighters.
Broadcasting live from an undisclosed location. This is The Community MMA with your host, Chris Cross.
Let's go, baby! This guy's stock is rising fast. Oh no! Ooh, a big right hand. Oh no! Ooh, a big right hand. Ooh, a big right hand.
Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski. Just about 72 hours away now. Less than 3 days. Is going down in the early hours of Sunday morning, or you can call Saturday night if you want to. But the fact is this fight is coming. It's going down in Australia, Perth, Australia to be exact. Islam Makhachev is walking into a tough situation because Volkanovski's fighting at home in front of his fans, and Islam Makhachev said, "Give me this fight on the road. He's coming up to my division and I'll go into his house and win this thing." But as I've said, what happens if Volkanovski wins? People are going to be shocked. It'll be up there with Leon Edwards beating Kamaru Usman. And the thing is if it did happen, not to say it will, you know how I feel, but if it did happen, it's got to be up there with Leon Edwards finishing Usman, even though it shouldn't be, because this guy is number one pound for pound in the world. And even though Alexander Volkanovski can't lose in this fight per se, because even if he loses, it's like, well, he went up a division, he doesn't really lose his featherweight belt, none of that. But if he wins this fight, he solidifies himself as one of the best MMA professional fighters of all time, because he'll be a 2-belt champ. He'll have beaten a guy that many people thought, at least right now, is unbeatable. The one fight that he lost was a questionable stoppage. So he's virtually undefeated, although he did lose that one fight. But Islam Makhachev seems unbeatable right now. And if Volkanovski walks in there and gets the win, I think people are going to be left shocked, and this man will finally get some respect. And that's why we tune in, right? Because anything could happen. You might think you know what's going to happen, but at the end of the day, anything can happen. Now, Dana White and Islam Makhachev have been going back and forth over the promotion of UFC 284, and Dana White's kind of like responding to Makhachev, saying there's like a lack of promoting this fight by the UFC, and Dana White's more or less like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He has no idea what he's talking about. He says, first of all, he lives in Dagestan. What does he know about what's going on for the promotion of the fight? He doesn't know anything. It's going to be one of the top 5 biggest fights of all time. Not Australia, but all time. First of all, the event sold out, right? You couldn't get a ticket if you wanted to get a ticket in Perth. And this thing is trending right now to be the biggest pay-per-view event in Australia, which it's also like 6% behind Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier 3. It's probably going to break the record. So to say that the fight hasn't been promoted, that's just ridiculous. So Dana White spitting facts, and it's trending early on to be the number 5, roughly, pay-per-view event of all time. And we'll look at those numbers here in just a second. But Dana White goes on, and this is on the Jim Rome show. He says number 1 versus number 2. Both world champions. Obviously Volkanovski moving up to try to take Islam's title. It's never happened before, so it's exciting. This is going to be one of the top 5 biggest fights of all time in UFC history. As far as gate, number 1, pay-per-view, the list goes on and on. He's walking right into you know, Volkanovski's territory and wants to beat him in his own country. I love that, said Dana White. And you got to respect that. I mean, this guy's going right into his opponent's territory. You know, it's very similar to an NFL playoff game when a team is playing on the road, or any other type of sporting event, even basketball, where the home crowd has a major advantage in the say of the game. And sometimes athletes love that opportunity to go in there and just silence a crowd. And that's what will happen if Islam Makhachev wins. Now, of course, he'll have fans there too, but the majority of the house, of the arena, will be rooting for the impossible, is what it seems like, for Volkanovski to pull off the win. And these are the top 10 pay-per-view buys in UFC history. And you can see McGregor is on 8 of the top 10. The two without him is number 9, Usman versus Masvidal, 1.3 million pay-per-view buys, and Lesnar versus Murr, too, 1.3 million pay-per-view buys. So you go up to number 4, McGregor versus Poirier, 3. Dana White saying it's trending about 6% behind that. That's like 90 to 100,000 roughly. So that would put this event, if it stays on track, as the number 5 biggest pay-per-view of all time. And now it would drop McGregor Aldo out of the top 10. So that's what things are looking like here. And is the card great? No. This really comes down to the main event. As simple as that. The main event, even the co-main event, which we're getting to the prediction today in a moment, isn't even trending that well, because it comes before Makhachev versus Volkanovski. But if Volkanovski wins this fight, the fight before this, Emmett versus Rodriguez, becomes a big result at the end of the day, because that will basically be the featherweight champion going forward, or at least in the mix for the featherweight title. It's like kind of like a semifinal for the featherweight division. Now, if you don't know, now you know, right? On the do list, we got Islam Makhachev 2, Alexander Volkanovski number 6. Again, this is not a pound for pound situation. These are just simply our favorite fighters. And now that McGregor has a fight coming up, he will be back on the do list. Last time he was there, he was number 3. We'll have to see how this plays out. Seems like Colby Covington is slowly dropping. I like Yair Prochazka in the top 5, because when he comes back, you got a big fight with him and Jamal Hill to really settle that division. And then you got down at number 10, Israel Adesanya. So Adesanya likely getting bumped to number 11 or 12. You got Shavkat Rakhmonov at number 11. At some point, he'll be in the top 10. He probably just needs another fight or two. But that's kind of the way this thing is looking right now. Khamzat Chimaev still on hold, right? No fight. I mean, it's crazy. It really is. You got some guys that have fought 3 times since Khamzat has fought his last fight. So you got a major problem here with Khamzat Chimaev just sitting on the sidelines. But first things first, you got the big fight this weekend, Makhachev versus Volkanovski. And let me just say this. If I'm the UFC, which obviously I'm not letting a time ever happen where I don't have Khamzat or Islam Makhachev with a fight. So as soon as this fight's over, you have both of them with no scheduled fight next. I'm not letting it happen. Like, I'm scheduling Khamzat's fight this week. So as soon as Makhachev is over, it transitions to Khamzat Chimaev, because those are the 2 biggest trending fighters. And even if you have to split it up, maybe that's what the UFC's doing. This is why we're waiting so long for a Khamzat fight. But if you have to split these 2 up, so that every 4 months you got to fight with one of these guys, and they both get to fight once every 8 months, which it seems like it's kind of on track for that. Although this will be Islam's second fight since Khamzat last fought against Kevin Holland, I believe. Because I think Khamzat fought at 279, and then Oliveira versus Makhachev, I remember, was at 280. So Islam's fighting again, defending the belt before Khamzat even gets another fight. So this is what's making a lot of people very, very upset about the situation. Now, before we get into the Q&A, let's get into the co-main event. You got Yair Rodriguez versus Josh Emmett. And we really need to take a look at this fight. It's not the best trending fight. It's a co-main event. And it's not a big trending fight because people just expect Islam Makhachev to win. But if Volkanovski wins, and we wouldn't know till after this fight, it makes this fight even bigger because he's not going back down to defend the belt at featherweight, much like Henry Cejudo relinquished the flyweight belt when he won the bantamweight. So this could end up potentially being a huge fight. Here's Rodriguez versus Emmett for the interim featherweight title. In the featherweight division at UFC 284, you got Yair Rodriguez coming in at 15-3, taking on Josh Emmett, who comes in at 18-2. And these are two very good featherweight fighters stuck in a division with Alexander Volkanovski as the longtime champion. And doesn't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon unless he can beat Islam Makhachev and he stays in a lightweight division. So these two guys are battling for the interim title. The winner will likely fight Volkanovski should Volkanovski return to this division. But Yair Rodriguez is 5 inches taller at 5'11", but he's got a 1-inch reach advantage. Both guys fight right-handed. Both guys land just over 4 significant strikes per minute, so it's very close in that department. Josh Emmett lands about a takedown every 3 rounds. Yair Rodriguez nearly the same, so not a lot of big advantages when you look at the numbers. Everything looks pretty close except the height advantage for Rodriguez, where he's 5 inches taller than Emmett. And will that lead Emmett to try to go in and get some takedowns? Well, it's possible because Yair Rodriguez has a 62% takedown defense. That's not very good. However, he's coming off the big win over Brian Ortega, TKO finish in that fight. He did lose to Max Holloway, but he performed pretty well compared to what we see Max Holloway do to others. It was 230 to 160 in terms of significant strikes. Max Holloway had 3 takedowns on Yair, which is concerning because Josh Emmett could take the same route. Before that, Yair Rodriguez beat Jeremy Stephens. So he's won 2 of his last 3 and continually working up. Now, Josh Emmett, on the other hand, has been on a tear. Right? He's won 5 in a row, 7 of the last 8. So in the 5-fight win streak, he's beat Michael Johnson, Mirsad Bektik, Shane Burgos, Dan 50K Ige, that's a big one, and Calvin Kattar, that's another big one. Now, Calvin Kattar outstruck him 130 to 107, but lost by split decision. And we saw this all in 2022 a lot, where one guy appears to win a fight and the other guy gets the decision. So that was the case in the Calvin Kattar fight. When you outstrike your opponent by 23, you probably should win, but he didn't. Also, Josh Emmett, 58% takedown defense. So both guys really want to keep the fight standing, but both guys have weak takedown defense, which is funny in this tough division where guys are going to want to strike, but they're going to try to take you down at times. Both guys seem to be winning with weak takedown defense. So look for this fight to go to the ground, although we're not expecting it to, right? When you look at the numbers, but expect this fight to go to the ground. And there, I think Josh Emmett has a little bit of an advantage, especially via the ground and pound. So although he's 5 inches shorter, it could play into his hands where he's going in and level changing. He's already shorter, going in for takedowns. If Josh Emmett can't get takedowns, it could be a long night for him. Yair Rodriguez wins. So, but what I think happens is Josh Emmett does get some takedowns. I think he controls the fight pretty well. It will be a 5-round fight. That will be interesting, but I'm still going to lean with Josh Emmett here. I mean, I like the fact that the guy's on a major win streak. He's beaten people, and he's won 5 in a row. I think that continues here. Tough matchup for both guys, but I think Josh Emmett guts it out here, landing more significant strikes, getting 2 or 3 takedowns, winning 3 rounds in a very close 48-47 decision for him. But I see him winning the fight that way to move to 19-2 and capture the featherweight interim title, and maybe gets a shot against Volkanovski. We'll see. But that's how it goes down here at UFC 284. Yeah, and it should be noted this will be a 5-round fight. It's for an interim title, so 48-47 won't happen. This thing is going 5 rounds. And I don't think either fighter really has the edge in that situation. I'm sure they've both been 5 rounds, if I'm not mistaken, because they've been headliners, or at least they were scheduled for 5 rounds. So, but neither one has a lot of experience with 5-round fights. So it's pretty even in that sense. But I still like Josh Emmett to get the job done. But that's a tough prediction. I mean, to me, that fight can go any which way. For all I know, Yair Rodriguez can go out there and dominate. So that's one where I'm not really sure of until I see it take place. And you have a lot of those in the UFC. But you just got to go with your gut instinct. And as you see, people will break down in a moment, you'll see people will break down how I do predictions, but it's all good. With that being said, we might as well jump into the Q&A. Kenneth Bruner says, Lewis got Hamzatted by Spivak. That's a new term when you end up with zeros across the scorecard. Spivak is a serious force in the heavyweight division. 90% of the heavyweight division can't handle this guy's sambo. Spivak is top 5 for sure. Yeah, and I would agree. I mean, you got him, and there's another guy coming up too right now. I can't remember his name right this minute, but you got 2 guys in the heavyweight division that are coming, and John Jones will get in the mix. If he wins his fight, a lot of guys are going to drop in the rankings by 1 spot, but that's a conversation for later. Yeah, Altapo Makhachev said not the highest ever. He was comparing it to top 5 Australian pay-per-view cards, like Ronda versus Holmes, Adesanya versus Robert. Well, it's clearly going to be the number 1 fight ever in Australia, but they're looking at this thing as top 5 pay-per-view of all time. 6% behind McGregor Poirier 3. That's number 4 all time. So he said not Khabib versus Conor level. And I agree with Makhachev. It's just that no fight is Khabib versus Conor level. And then the aftermath of that fight, solidified it forever, right? Makhachev's back pay-per-view will be above 500K. Also, Dana White said number 1 pay-per-view in Australia, not world, so the max is about $1 million. Well, I'm saying about anywhere from 1.4 to 1.6. I actually think this fight's gonna really do well in pay-per-view sales on the day of the fight. On the day of the fight, this thing is going to be huge because people are going to want to tune in. You can't miss it if Islam does go. If Islam wins, fine. But if he goes down and the crowd reaction in Australia to a 2-belt champ in Volkanovski, even if you know in your heart that Makhachev is going to win, you can't miss the fight. So that's why it's going to be big on the day of. Bruner's back. I don't think the card does well. Dana coming out and saying it's going to do XYZ is a sign it's not. Just the time zone difference messes the show over. Can you see casual watchers staying up till 2 or 3 a.m. and paying $80 for this? I don't. Now, if they gave Hamza a title shot Saturday, that's a different story. Now, he'll get corrected a little bit, but he's not too far off with the 2 or 3 a.m. It'll be like 1 a.m., maybe 1:30. By the time that fight happens, Makhachev says 500K is possible, plus Dana was talking about Australia, not world, and that is about $1 million. Upvoter says the card starts at regular pay-per-view time in America. What are you talking about? Laugh out loud. Oh, Larry Curley, when I'm tired of all the hype and nonsense with MMA, this is where I tune in for some sanity and objective opinion. Thanks, Chris, for your efforts. I mean, we try. I just try to keep it real with you. That's all I try to do is keep it real. Even if I'm wrong on certain things, I don't change my ways. Anshul Jubilee needs to train with Hamza. Yes, he does. He needs to train. Everybody needs to train with Hamza as far as I'm concerned. Reem Raw, Islam is cool and all, but how about that former 340-pound rugby master with kangaroo-like quickness from the down under? He's talking to Volkanovski with a warrior mentality and steel determination, no KO power, and he's a decision machine, but it's an upset in the making, for sure. And this is why I think it's going to sell big on Saturday. So that's what you have. You also had someone weighing in saying, Chris Cross, you gotta get your lighting better. You gotta shave your face and get rid of the gray, right? So I purposely I wanted to shave today, but I couldn't because then that person would think that I shaved because of them. But listen, I keep it real with you, right? If I got a little gray coming in, I'm not gonna hide it because then you're gonna be like, oh, Chris Cross has got that color in. He's trying to be fake. I knew he was fake. He don't watch no UFC. That's how the conversation would go. But listen, I'm going to keep saying it. We're 25-11 on the year right now. 3-0 in the main event. I mean, we'll take it. It could be a lot worse. Instead of 25-11, we could be like 20-18 or 20-17. That wouldn't be great. You want to be above 60% at all times. And you want to be hovering around that 70% mark when you're making predictions. And right now we're like 68, 69%. As long as we're over 65% by the end of the year, I consider it a great year. If we're under, as long as we're above 60, it was an average year. So, that's the goal. Right now we're above the goal, and we're hitting the ground running again in 2023 with the main events, 3-0. It could have easily knocked on that way, but Jamal Hill came through. Other guys came through. Sergey Spivak beat Lewis and all that. We'll take it all. But listen, for now, this your boy Chris Cross. It's almost that time. Makhachev versus Volkanovski coming in just 2 days. I hope you have a great day and God bless. Peace.